Hello, nerds for Yang.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Hello, nerds. So nerds.
Hello, nerds.
Now with this campaign, bang, dang, it's and true. Come roll with the Yang Gang.
Hello, nerds. Nerds for Humanity. It's been a while. Figured I'd do a live stream after sitting through that amazing Republican National Committee convention, which was very frustrating. I live tweeted most of it. If we have time in this stream, I will do a little bit of fact checking. But the focus of this one is going to be on the Russian Senate intelligence report. It's interesting. There hasn't been a lot of people talking about it. Maybe the media is just tired of talking about Russia, but I thought it would be useful since the Senate intelligence report is obviously chaired by Republicans. So it's not some, Democratic hoax or, super biased thing. It's done by a bunch of Republicans in the Senate. Senators tend to be pretty moderate, pretty reasonable. But yes, solid Steve, that RNC convention was definitely something. A little cringy, in my opinion. But, there, it is what it is. If you guys want to say hello in the chat, let me know where you guys are coming in from. I am coming to you from the Bay Area in my beautiful imaginary cabin. So thank you for our channel members for making this green screen possible. I find that it's quite nice. Oh, look, I think you can see the edge of my green screen. I think you can. Let me adjust it. Hold on. Oh, maybe I can pull it in a little more. There we go. All right. Whatever. It's good enough. Okay. Hello from Portugal. Sue, I just, some of you guys know, I was in Europe for many years and just moved back to the States. I was in Portugal one time and had that amazing custard. Golly, so good. So good. They rang a bell when it came right out of the oven. Jay from Austin. Solid Steve's from South Texas. Mike says, oh, I'm competing with Elon Musk. I didn't know he was doing a live stream now. But this is when I had time to do it, because if I do it too late, my wife will get frustrated that I'm taking away from family dinner time. And earlier today, I was at work. Jason from the Bay Area. Hope you're staying safe there, Jason. There isn't too much smoke where you are. All right. Shall we get into the details? So did the Russians do anything according not to the Democratic National Committee, not according to Joe Biden, according to the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee, chaired by Republicans? Well, it turns out that they published a report, and most people don't watch it, didn't read it, because it's a PDF. It's not sexy, but I'm gonna share it with you, and hopefully make that content a little more accessible. Serja from Singapore. Hello, Serja. I used to live in Singapore as well for a few years back in the late 90s. Oh, is Sue telling me the official name of the custard? Yes, that might be it. It's like yellow, and then it's a little bit burnt from the oven. And then I had it with an espresso. Forget about it. So good. Okay, here we go, guys. Let's take a look. Volume 1. Did the Russians really do anything? Okay, so let me zoom in a little. Volume 1 is about Russian efforts against election infrastructure. Unfortunately, there's going to be some redactions here but I don't know, kind of makes it sound more interesting that they actually have stuff in here that's important enough to redact. So let's just go to the findings. First is that the Russian government did direct extensive activity beginning in at least 2014 against U.S. infrastructure at the state and local level. Redaction. However, there's no evidence that any votes were changed or any voting machines were manipulated. Point number 2 is a complete redaction. So we'll have to wait for like the Freedom of Information Act at some point to get all of this, or it gets declassified. Point number 3, while the committee does not know with confidence what Moscow's intentions were, they were probing vulnerabilities in the voting systems for a future exploitation. So they were kind of sniffing around, or, you know, casing the joint, if you will. But in 2016, they did not manipulate any voting records. They were just trying to probe, potentially for 2020. Who knows? They exploited the seams between federal authorities and protections for the states, cybersecurity, local partners. DHS did alert states to the threat of cyber in 2016, but the warnings did not provide enough information or to the right people. They provided no clear reason for states to take this threat more seriously than any other alert received. Officials at all levels debated Russian activities demand renewed attention. Aging voting equipment, particularly voting machines that had no paper record, were vulnerable. And some of these vulnerabilities remain. DHS has redoubled its efforts to build trust. Great strides. The arc of Russian activities. Okay, so again, no tallies were altered, but they did commit an unprecedented level of activity against state infra in the run-up, targeting the voting process, undermining the confidence in U.S. democratic institutions and voting process. That's a really interesting line, that part of the Russian strategy is not to necessarily mess with the election, but just cause people to question if the election is credible. Yeah, in some ways, you could argue like we're doing that to ourselves. Donald Trump basically already saying that the election results were rigged before we even voted yet. A bunch of more redactions. Then this is when the states were given their alert. More redactions. All right. So I think this PDF, Volume 1, is all about Russian probing. And I guess the TLDR is we knew it, we didn't know enough. So, you know, the states weren't able to do much. But that's it on their probing of the core system. Now let's go to the second area that the Senate looked into, which they describe as use of social media. Oh, let's take a look there. Volume 2. All right. So let's go to the findings. Findings. The committee found that the IRA, which I believe is a Russian organization, see if I can find out what IRA stands for somewhere up here. Let me look, Google it. Russian IRA. The Internet Research Agency, also known as Glasvet, also known in Russian internet slang as the Trolls from Olgino, is a Russian company engaged in online influence operations on behalf of Russian political interests. It is linked to oligarch Yevgeny Prigozhin, and it is based in St. Petersburg, Russia. So that's what the IRA is in this report. So what did the IRA do? They sought to influence the 2016 election by harming Hillary Clinton's chances of success and supporting Donald Trump at the direction of the Kremlin. So that's not like they might have, they did it. I don't know if you've ever heard Trump talk about the help he got from the IRA, but this is what the US Senate believes, that is chaired by Republicans. The committee found that the IRA's information warfare campaign was broad in scope, beyond the result of the 2016 presidential. That Russia's goals were to undermine public faith in the US democratic process, to denigrate Secretary Clinton and harm her electability and potential presidency. The committee found that IRA social media activity was overtly and invariably supportive of then candidate Trump, to the detriment of Secretary Clinton's campaign. So, I mean, let's just be clear here. This is the US Senate, chaired by a Republican, making it very clear that the Russians were involved in Donald Trump's election. For some reason, neither side of the political spectrum is talking about this report, which frankly feels like a bombshell to me, but whatever. Freaking another country is trying to pick our president for us, but we'd rather talk about statues and stuff. Okay, the committee found that Russian government tasked and supported the IRA's interference is consistent with the understanding of a relationship between Yevgeny Prigozhin and the Kremlin. Despite Moscow's denials, the direction and financial involvement of Prigozhin, as well as his close ties to high-level Russian government officials, including Vladimir Putin, point to significant Kremlin support, authorization, and direction of the IRA's operations and goals. This was part of a broader, sophisticated, and ongoing information warfare campaign designed to sow discord in American politics and society. The IRA conducted a vastly more complex and strategic assault on the United States than was initially understood. And it's only the latest installment in an increasingly brazen interference by the Kremlin on the citizens and democratic institutions of the US. Then they go into the history of IRA activities and a ton of redaction. Okay, the preponderance of the operational focus was on socially divisive issues, specifically race, immigration, Second Amendment rights, in an attempt to pit Americans against one another and against their government. The committee found that the IRA influenced operatives consistently used hot-button societal divisions as fodder for the content they publish through social media in order to stoke anger, provoke outrage and protest, and push Americans farther apart from one another and foment distrust in government institutions. And this was just another feature in a more expansive, target-rich landscape of ideological and societal sensitivity. So when a lot of us talk about, well, it sucks that we're so polarized, apparently there's some folks in St. Petersburg, Russia, connected to Vladimir Putin that are exactly what they want to see. Next. The committee found that the IRA targeted not only Hillary Clinton, but also Republican candidates during presidential primaries. For example, Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio were targeted and denigrated, as well as Jeb Bush. Russia's overt media outlets and covert trolls sought to sideline opponents of both sides who had adversarial views towards the Kremlin. Yeah, that's true, because I think Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio and Bush were not big fans of the Russians. IRA operators sought to impact primaries for both major parties and may have helped sink the hopes of candidates who were hostile to Russian interests long before the field narrowed. So this is sort of the Russians not getting involved in the general election, but basically deciding who got the nomination, or not deciding, influencing who got the nomination by making people that were tough on Russia less likely to get the nomination. Now, I know the president often makes a statement that no one has been tougher on Russia than himself, but according to the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee, the Russians are quite happy with Trump and wanted him to win and did everything they could not only to hurt Hillary, but also to hurt Cruz, Rubio, and Bush. Ooh, this is crazy. So the committee found that no single group of Americans was targeted more than African Americans. By far, race and related issues were the preferred target of information warfare campaigns designed to divide the country in 2016. Now, you could argue like they've done a pretty good job of that, but let's see what else they're saying. The overwhelming emphasis on race is evident in their Facebook ad content. Over 66% of the Russian ads contained a term related to race and targeting at African Americans in key metro areas. Its top performing page, Blacktivists, generated 11 million engagements on Facebook. Its Instagram content were focused on African Americans, and Twitter content focused on hot button and racial undertones such as NFL kneeling protests. And its YouTube activity was also targeted at racial issues and police brutality. But they didn't just do paid advertisements. They had a small number of advertisements. They spent about 100,000 over 2 years, a minor amount because the IRA has operational costs of over $1 million a month. Also, the Facebook and Instagram ads were fairly minor. But what they did instead of, so a lot of times you hear people say like, oh, these Russians, they really didn't do much. They only spent, a couple $100,000 on ads. They were pretty clever or cost effective. They found that the IRA co-opted unwitting Americans to engage in activities in furtherance of their objectives. So the online influence operations were not constrained to just disseminating content in the virtual realm, and they were not just focused on inciting anger and promoting division, but they got Americans to deepen their engagement with IRA operatives. For example, IRA targeted African Americans over social media and attempted and succeeded, in some cases, to influence their targets to sign petitions, share personal information, and teach self-defense training courses, posing as U.S. political activists. The IRA requested and in some cases obtained assistance from the Trump campaign in procuring materials for rallies and in promoting and organizing MAGA rallies. Wow. That's crazy. Why should the Russians be helping organize MAGA rallies? The committee found that the IRA was not Russia's only vector. Publicly available information shows additional influence operations emanating from Russia. So the Kremlin was diversifying. It didn't just rely on the IRA. They also had the GRU, which is the General Staff of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, exploited U.S. social media platforms as a vehicle for influence operations. Wow. Dude, this is like better than fiction. The committee found that IRA activity on social media did not cease, but increased after Election Day 2016. That after the election, IRA activity across multiple social media platforms went up by 238% on Instagram, 59% on Facebook, 52% on Twitter, and 84% on YouTube. After Election Day, the Russian government stepped on the gas. Accounts operated by the IRA troll farm became more active after election, confirming again that assault on our democratic process is much bigger than an attack on a single election. Though all of the known IRA accounts were suspended or taken down by the fall of 2017, outside researchers continue to uncover additional IRA social media accounts dedicated to spreading content. There were 6.6 million tweets linking to publishers of false news and conspiracy stories in the months before the 2016 election. 6 million tweets. More than 80% of the disinformation accounts in our election maps are still active, and they continue to publish more than 1 million tweets in a typical day. All right. So that's the social media stuff. I'm guessing this will go on and on about the social media stuff. So basically, so far, volume 1 was about Russian probing, trying to see our election defense capabilities. And then there being some warnings, but not enough for the states to act on it. But luckily, none of the vote tallies, as far as we can tell, were affected. It was more preparing for potentially future operations. And then secondly, the IRA social media troll farms focusing on NFL kneeling, Second Amendment, basically any kind of divisive issue, and then helping organize attendance and participation in Donald Trump rallies. Oh, and then also undermining the campaigns and trying to diminish the campaigns of Bush, Rubio, and Cruz to clear the way for Trump. All right. Let's see. There's a volume 3. You guys want to look at volume 3, or is that enough on the Russians? You want to know more about what they were doing? Let me know in the chat, because I don't want to just drone on. But if you want, I'm happy to share what they did around, let's see, the U.S. government response to these Russian activities. I'm not seeing anybody in the chat say they want more, unless the chat is not showing up for me. Hold on. More Russia. Okay, sorry. There was a delay in my chat box here. Okay, we will give you more. So let's look at volume 3. It is wild, Brian. I agree. Okay, let's see. I'll go quickly. I won't read through the whole report, but I'll scan volume 3. What are the findings? Findings. U.S. government was not well postured to counter Russian election interference with a full range of policy options. Now, this is you gotta hold. You guys know, well, many of you know that I'm a big fan of Barack Obama, but we gotta call it what it is, man. Like, we as a country were not prepared for this Russian intervention. The administration was constrained in its response by the heavily politicized environment, the concern that the public warnings would themselves undermine confidence, the unknown extent to which the Russians could target, the delay in attribution, the time and resources, and the challenge to address WikiLeaks. All right, let's take a little step back for a second. If you're Obama, and they tell you, hey, these Russians are trying to help Trump get the nomination, and then they're trying to help him defeat Hillary. I could imagine the meeting where some people might have been saying, Mr. President, if you go out there and you tell the American people that the Russians are trying to hurt Hillary and help Trump, people are going to say you're putting your thumb on the scale. People are going to say that you're trying to help your buddy Hillary get elected. I could see that. And then they might also have said to him, and why? She's going to get reelected anyway. So stay out of it. Of course, in hindsight, he probably should have gotten involved, but I don't know. Maybe I'm a Obama apologist, which is very possible. But yeah. So the administration did not react enough, at least according to the committee. And policymakers were not concerned with Russian interference until the CIA director Brennan reported redacted information through a series of oral briefings to a restricted group of senior policymakers. They handled the cyber and geopolitical aspects of Russian measures as separate issues. Decisions to limit and delay information flow regarding Russian active measures inadvertently constrained the administration's ability to respond. Yeah. All right. I won't go into all of it, but basically, and this is when the Russians hacked into the DNC computer network. Huh. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. So that's volume 3, a little taste. And then let me just give you a little brief volume 4, and then we'll go into the fact checking on the RNC convention. Let's see. Volume 3. Oh, volume 4. Holy mackerel. This is a review of the intelligence community assessment. Okay. Hold on. Golly. This one, I don't know if we're going to be able to get much out of because it seems to be massively redacted. Look at that. What the hell? The whole damn table of contents is blacked out. Well, let's see what we can find. All right. Come on. Let's go to the findings. Findings. All right. The ICA is the Intelligence Community Assessment, which is kind of like, I think, consensus across like CIA, FBI, like the broader group. And they found that the ICA presents a coherent and well-constructed intelligence basis for the case of unprecedented Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. On the analytical lines of the ICA, the committee concludes that all blank analytic lines are supported with all source intelligence. The ICA reflects proper tradecraft. The differing confidence levels are justified. Multiple disciplines are used and identified. They're basically saying, like, this isn't some theory. Everybody seems to agree. Yeah, I think this is basically just saying that it happened. All right. Yeah. Okay. So I think the key takeaways from this. Oh, you know what? That's a good point. Jason, you guys are talking about WikiLeaks, right? Let's see if I can find when they talked about WikiLeaks. Let's see. There's a volume 5. Findings. Hang in there, guys. A lot of documents. Ooh, we got to look at volume 5. Volume 5 has some cool stuff. Okay. All right. In this volume, the committee lays out findings by looking at many aspects of the counterintelligence threat posed by Russian influence. The committee examined Paul Manafort, who was the Trump campaign manager, connection to Russian actors, and the FBI's treatment of reporting produced by Christopher Steele, the famous Steele reports. All right, let's see what the findings are. Okay, Paul Manafort. This is Donald Trump's campaign manager from 2016. Manafort's connections to Russia and Ukraine began in late 2004 with the start of his work for Oleg Deripaska. And other Russian-aligned oligarchs in the Ukraine. From 2004 to 2009, Manafort implemented these influence operations on behalf of Deripaska, including a multi-million-dollar political influence campaign directed at numerous countries of interest to Deripaska and the Russian government. Manafort hired and worked closely with Konstantin Kilimnik. Kilimnik is a Russian intelligence officer and became an integral part of Manafort's operations in Ukraine and Russia. Prior to joining the Trump campaign and continuing throughout his time on the campaign, Manafort directly and indirectly communicated with Kilimnik, Deripaska, and the pro-Russian oligarchs in Ukraine. Manafort sought to secretly share internal Trump campaign information with Kilimnik. The committee was unable to reliably determine why Manafort shared internal polling data or Trump campaign strategy with Kilimnik, or with whom Kilimnik further shared that information. They had limited insight into Kilimnik's communications with Manafort and into Kilimnik's communications with other individuals connected to Russia, all of whom use communication security practices. okay, why does it strike anyone as a little weird that Donald Trump's campaign manager was sharing internal campaign polling and campaign strategy docs with a Russian intelligence officer? Does that strike anyone as a little bit unusual? I mean, if Obama had shared anything with China or Russia or Nigeria, I don't know. I would imagine Fox News would be on top of this. While he was campaign chairman and until 2018, Manafort discussed with Kilimnik a peace plan for eastern Ukraine that would be beneficial to Russia. After the election, Manafort continued to coordinate with Russian persons, particularly Kilimnik and others close to Deripaska, in an effort to undertake activities on their behalf. Manafort's presence on the campaign and proximity to Trump created opportunities for Russian intelligence services to exert influence over and acquire confidential information on the Trump campaign. Taken as a whole, Manafort's high-level access and willingness to share information with Russian intelligence services, particularly Kilimnik and associates of Deripaska, represented a grave counterintelligence threat. So next time you see someone on Twitter saying like, oh, the Russians, why do you keep talking about the Russians? Dude, mofos were working with the campaign manager of our current president of the United States. That is so not okay. I don't know. Okay. The committee found that Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered the Russian effort to hack computer networks and accounts affiliated with the Democratic Party and leak information damaging to Hillary Clinton and her campaign for president. Moscow's intent was to harm the Hillary Clinton campaign, tarnish the expected Clinton presidential administration, and help the Trump campaign after Trump became the presumptive nominee, and undermine the United States democratic process. WikiLeaks actively sought and played a key role in the Russian influence campaign, and very likely knew it was assisting a Russian intelligence influence effort. At the time of the first WikiLeaks releases, the US government had not yet declared WikiLeaks hostile organization. While the GRU and WikiLeaks were releasing hacked documents, the Trump campaign sought to maximize the impact of those leaks to aid Trump's electoral prospects. Staff on the Trump campaign sought advance notice about WikiLeaks releases, creating messaging strategies to promote and share materials in anticipation and following their release, and then encouraged further leaks. The Trump campaign publicly undermined the attribution of the hack and leak campaign to Russia and was indifferent to whether it and WikiLeaks were furthering a Russian election interference effort. Now, to be fair to the MAGA people, the committee found no evidence that campaign officials received an authoritative government notification that the hack was perpetrated by the Russian government. However, the campaign was aware of the extensive media reporting and other private sector attribution of the hack to Russian actors. So it's possible maybe the Trump campaign did not know where that information was coming from, and they just thought, well, it's from WikiLeaks, whatever. Trump and senior campaign officials sought to obtain advance information about WikiLeaks' planned releases through Roger Stone. At their direction, Stone took action to gain inside knowledge for the campaign and shared his knowledge directly with Donald Trump and senior campaign officials on multiple occasions. Trump and the campaign believed that Stone had inside information and expressed satisfaction that Stone's information suggested more releases would be coming. Okay. The committee found that the connection between Trump and the Agalarovs began in 2013 with the planning for the Miss Universe Moscow pageant. The committee found that Agalarov was involved in pushing for the June 2016 meeting between Natalia Veselnitskaya and senior members of the campaign for a second meeting following the election, also with Veselnitskaya, that did not take place. The second one did not take place. The committee found evidence suggesting that it was the intent of the campaign participants in the June 16 meeting, particularly Donald Trump Jr., to receive derogatory information that would be a benefit to the campaign from a source known at least by Trump Jr. to have connections to the Russian government. And the committee found no reliable evidence that the information of benefit to the campaign was transmitted or that Trump had foreknowledge of the meeting. So basically, the crime, I think, is taking the meeting with the understanding that you would get opposition research from a foreign government. In fact, the meeting did not deliver that opposition research, but you could argue on what planet is it okay to get help from a foreign country to provide you with information about your opponent? Like, as an example, if Joe Biden, let's say he got a call from the Chinese and they said, hey, I have the P tapes on Trump. You wouldn't want Biden doing a deal with the Chinese to get information, right? And if he had taken the meeting, even if he says, well, I never got the P tape, like, it's still, you're doing it with the intent. It's like agreeing to rob a bank, but maybe you didn't get the money, but you made the agreement, you colluded, you planned, you showed up at the bank. I don't know. Then they talk about the meeting. And that the two participants in the meeting, Veselnitskaya and Akhmedishin, have significant connections to the Russian government, including Russian intelligence. They were far more extensive and concerning than what had been publicly known. And neither Veselnitskaya nor Akhmedishin were forthcoming with the committee regarding these connections. And they sought to obfuscate the true intent of their work in the United States. And then, of course, there's the Trump Tower Moscow project. Trump pursued a business deal in Russia. Michael Cohen handled these affairs. In September 15, Trump authorized Cohen to pursue a deal in Russia through Felix Sater, a longtime business associate. They had signed Trump and a Russia-based developer signed a letter of intent laying out the main terms of a licensing deal that promised to provide the Trump organization millions of dollars upon signing of the deal and hundreds of millions of dollars if the project advanced to completion. Hundreds of millions of dollars if the project advanced to completion. That's pretty big incentive to do business with the Russians, especially if they're helping you become president. Cohen kept Trump updated on the progress of the deal. While these negotiations were ongoing, Trump made positive public statements about Putin in connection with his presidential campaign. Cohen and Sater sought to leverage Trump's comments and subsequent comments about Trump by Putin to advance the deal. Sater told Cohen about high-level outreach to Russian businessmen and officials that Sater claimed to have undertaken related to the deal. What else? By the end of 15, so this is right leading up to the election, by the end of 2015, Cohen reached out to Kremlin to solicit the Russian government's assistance. Cohen made contact with Russian presidential administrative aide Dmitry Peskov, a senior Kremlin official and advisor to Putin. Cohen discussed the project in detail, reported to Trump that he had done so. Russian senior government officials, including almost certainly President Vladimir Putin, were aware of the deal by January of 2016. Cohen and Sayer continued negotiations through the spring of 16. Their conversations focused largely on efforts to travel to Russia to advance the deal, but the committee found no evidence of other steps other than the negotiations and the traveling. They did meet in person. Cohen and Sayer met in person in Trump Tower, and Cohen likely relayed that he would not be able to travel to Russia at that time, and that by the summer of 16, attempts to advance the deal had stopped. Oh, and then there's this Papadopoulos. What? George Papadopoulos joined the Trump campaign as part of the foreign advisory team to blunt criticism that the campaign lacked any foreign policy advisors. The committee found that Papadopoulos used multiple avenues to pursue a face-to-face meeting between Trump and Putin. Papadopoulos believed that he was operating with the approval of campaign leadership. His efforts introduced him to several individuals that raised counterintelligence concerns due to their associations with individuals from hostile foreign environments. The committee assesses that Papadopoulos was not a witting co-optee of the Russian intelligence service, but nonetheless presented a prime intelligence target, kind of like I believe they call them useful idiots. The committee found evidence that Papadopoulos likely learned about the Russian active measures campaign as early as April 16. The committee found Papadopoulos communicated the information he learned to at least 2 separate foreign governments. Why? I have no idea. Carter Page was a member of Trump campaign's foreign policy advisory team. Page previously lived in Russia, had worked on Russian energy issues. And Russian intelligence officers had previously interacted with Page, but they found no evidence that Page made any substantive contribution to the campaign or ever met Trump. He was invited to make addresses in Russia. Doesn't seem like there's much with Page. The committee found no evidence that anyone associated with Trump campaign had any substantive private conversations with Sergei Kislyak. Okay, that's good. And then Butina. That's weird. Starting in 2013 and over a several-year period, Maria Butina, founder of a Russian gun rights organization, and Alexander Torshin, a high-ranking Russian banker with Kremlin ties, established a broad network of relationships with leaders of the National Rifle Association, conservative political operatives, Republican government officials, and individuals connected to the Trump campaign. Okay. Then they talk about the transition team. All right. What else is there? I think we covered most of it. All right. I'm going to take a little break. Basically, these Russians, they were not effing around. Now, if you've heard this, you might be saying to yourself, well, this sounds like, this sounds like Democrat fake news, bias, trying to make our great president look bad. Let me remind you who is on the committee that published the report that we just went through. Okay? You ready for this? Is it a bunch of BLM Marxists? Is it? No, it's Marco Rubio. Marco freaking Rubio. Okay? And then you've got Richard Burr, James Rich, Susan Collins, Roy Blunt, Tom Cotton. Didn't he talk at the RNC convention? John Cornyn, Ben Sass. You know, this is not a bunch of crazy anarchists. These are Republicans, and then you've got Democrats, Kamala Harris, Angus King, Dianne Feinstein. So yeah, it's not all Republicans, but the chair of the committee, the one that has all the power, is a Republican. So if they felt that the Russians were not involved, they would not have published this report. Now, of course, the question is like, why the heck isn't this being reported? That I don't get. I don't know why the mainstream media on both sides, Fox and CNN, did not say, a single word about this. This seems to me to be kind of crazy how definitive they were. All right, now we're going to go into fact-checking mode. Before we do fact-checking of the RNC speeches, not all of them, but many of them, we'll go through the Trump ones. Let me just give a quick thank you to channel members who make this content possible, who make the screen, these lights, this camera, this mic, me spending time. We even ran an ad on Yang Speaks to get this audience, to grow our audience so we can get more guests to agree to come on the show. So thank you to all our channel members. And let's just give them a quick shout out. Kristen Slevin, thank you very much. Next level is VP. VLAM, JM Sap, Fat Lamb, Chris Chan, Laura Lane, Joshua Frick, Arkansas for Yang, Patrick Dunn. Next level is Hardcore. Mike Chang, Gene Lim, Mrs. Jones, David, Tracy Mesa, DK, Landline, Koa Win, Phoenix, Jekalego, Kirsch, Mr. History Fan, Byram Hess, Mona Burton, Susan Clifton, Yang Deng. And we have our entry-level members, but we love them all. Helen, Lisa, Sugar, Albert, Brandon, Yes, Brian, Peter, Arez, Hitachi, Your Maman, Gail, Jedwiga, Sophia, Shake and Make, Mike, Doris, Miles, Mercy Ann, Emerald, Soldier, Emily, Elizabeth, Nell, Lori, Ben, Roger, Richard, Lisa, Per, Christina, Vaughn, and Anthony. So thank you to our members for everything that you guys do. If you are not a member and you want to join, just go to, I'll put a link here, tinyurl.com/join NFH, or if you're on YouTube, there should be a big join button somewhere down here. Okay, so let's move on to fact checking. Okay, last night was a big freaking night for the Republican convention. A lot of stuff was said. We're here to hold people accountable for telling the truth. I don't think most people listening to that speech will do the fact checking or will care. But if you're on the Nerds for Humanity channel, you care about facts. So let's see. I should say that not all of what Trump said was untrue. So there was some truth to what he was talking about. So we'll go through that. First statement. The United States have you heard this before? Has among the lowest case fatality rates of any major country in the world. My God. Sounds like we are winning. We are the best. We are crushing it. Other countries wish they had the COVID response that we do in America. Well, it turns out that when you calculate the number of people known to have the coronavirus who die, it is currently above 3% in the United States, which puts us in the top third of countries afflicted by the coronavirus. So obviously, if you believe that America is the most wealthy, most advanced country on the planet, you probably would want us to be higher than the top third. But unfortunately, we have the 51st highest observed fatality rate out of 170 countries. And we have the 22nd highest death rate of the 37 OECD countries, pretty much the rich countries. So number 22 of the rich and number 51 of all, which is different than what the president said, right? The president said, now you notice the president's his speechwriters are quite clever. He doesn't say we have the lowest case fatality rate. He says the United States has among the lowest case fatality rates of any major country in the world. You know, if you're number 22 of all the rich countries and you're number 51 out of 170, I suppose that's technically true. But if you polled MAGA supporters and you said, hey, what number out of 150, out of 170, do you think the U.S. is? Given that President Trump has said we have among the lowest fatality rates of any major country in the world, you think they would say 51? And if you ask them, well, okay, how about out of the 37 rich, major, advanced countries? Do you think they would have said 22? So sorry, President Trump, you flubbed the coronavirus response, and you should own it. Next, we will go right after Trump. We will not rely on them one bit. We want our business to come home. This is exaggerated. I don't think I'm going to go through the exaggerated. I'll focus on the false, but since I started this one, he has pushed to decouple. Trade with China fell sharply last year, but trade data suggests that most companies that have left China have relocated to Vietnam and Mexico. So basically, I think what we did with this trade war is rather than, oh, you notice he's very clever. He says, we are bringing it home. We want our business to come home. It's 5 o'clock. So technically, that's kind of true. He does want it to come home. But if you look at the facts, they're not. They're going to Vietnam, Mexico, and low-cost countries. They are not coming home. But his statement is quite cleverly written. We are bringing it home. We want our business to come home. Okay. We're going to focus on false. Biden has promised to abolish the production of oil, coal, shale, and natural gas. These same policies led to crippling power outages in California just last week. As temperatures rose in California, managers of the electric grid called on utilities to cut power, but the energy experts also said the utilities had plenty of power available. The blackouts weren't necessary. They were done because of the risk of high temperature leading to problems with the grid. It wasn't that there wasn't power from, oil, coal, shale, and natural gas. In fact, California has not banned oil and gas, and it is actually one of the nation's top 10 oil-producing states. Okay. This one. They spied. Remember this, according to President Trump. They spied on my campaign and they got caught. This is misleading. In July, the FBI opened a counterintelligence investigation into Russia's covert operation, which you know from this stream was a real thing, as confirmed by the Senate Republican-chaired Intelligence Committee, that Russia did try to tilt the election in favor of Trump. So it's not crazy that the FBI would want to find out, like, well, what the hell are they doing? And is there any coordination? So the FBI used several confidential informants to approach Trump associates to see what they would say about Russia's hacking. It wiretapped Carter Page, an advisor with ties to Russian intelligence. Page had left the campaign by the time a court approved the warrant, but the wiretap orders permit the FBI to look at older emails. The purpose was to understand the scope and nature of an effort by a foreign adversary to manipulate an election. Calling it spying on his campaign connotes trying to gain an electoral advantage, but there is no evidence that any information gathered by the inquiry was provided to the Clinton campaign or leaked to affect the vote. So, I mean, if you guys are watching this stream and you caught the early part, you know we just went through 5 volumes of the Senate Intelligence Committee basically saying point blank that the Russians were involved at trying to divide us as a country, probe our voting systems, undermine Rubio, Cruz, Bush, and Clinton, and help Trump, that the Trump campaign coordinated with WikiLeaks on the release of the Hillary Clinton emails, met with known Russian operatives trying to get more intelligence. So is it crazy that the FBI decided to look into and wiretap a Trump campaign official with known ties to Russian intelligence? Like, I don't know. I don't think it's that crazy. I would imagine that's what they should have done. In fact, had they not done it, I would have said, what the hell, Obama? You knew that another country was trying to help a campaign and you didn't try and figure out if there was anything more to it, if there was any deep connection. All right. Next one. Oh, this is a good one. We will always and very strongly protect patients with pre-existing conditions, and that is the pledge from the entire Republican Party. So the ACA, signed by Obama, established protections for Americans with pre-existing conditions. Though President Trump often says he supports the idea, he has taken numerous actions that would weaken those protections. He supported legislation that would have overturned the ACA and undermined the comprehensiveness of health benefits. He has expanded the availability of skimpy insurance that does not need to offer plans to people with pre-existing conditions. And he is involved in a lawsuit currently before the Supreme Court that would overturn the health law in its entirety, including protection of patients with pre-existing conditions. And on top of that, he has produced no details on what policy would replace Obamacare and help patients with pre-existing conditions if he were to prevail in that suit. You guys probably heard this one. During the Democratic convention, the words "under God" were removed from the Pledge of Allegiance, not once, but twice. We will never do that. But the fact is, this is where they are coming from. All right. So what's the fact? Is this really happened? Because I watched the DNC convention and I did not see them remove the word God. So what are the facts? The facts are that the DNC recited the Pledge of Allegiance on all 4 nights, including the words "under God." The DNC convention recited the Pledge of Allegiance on all 4 nights, including the words "under God." and so did most of its caucuses, which take place well before primetime programming. Several smaller meetings, 2 meetings of the LGBTQ caucus and 1 of the Muslim Assembly, recited the pledge, omitting the words "under God." So these are these like little kind of small ball meetings in the afternoon. Nobody's watching it. They're just talking amongst themselves. They chose to separate church from state, which frankly is a pretty American thing. But on the primetime major DNC convention, all 4 nights, recite a pledge, said "under God." So that's that. But I'm sure you're going to hear about it by Trump over and over and over. Okay, let's give him credit. He did say something that was true, that Biden voted for NAFTA and he supported the WTO. Yes, this is true. I think most of the Republican Party supported NAFTA and the WTO. But if you are a Trump Republican and you hate the traditional Republicans, then you're right that Trump is definitely not a fan of free trade agreements. And I got to give him credit. I think it's fair because the American workers don't have any way to benefit from those things. And they end up getting undercut. Let's see. The travel ban. All right. When I took bold action to issue a travel ban on China, very early indeed, Joe Biden called it hysterical and xenophobic. I've heard that a bunch of times in the RNC convention. So what are the facts? The facts are that Mr. Biden did not say those words about Mr. Trump's partial travel ban on China. Mr. Trump announced the ban on Jan 31. Mr. Biden wrote the next day that Mr. Trump has a record of hysteria, xenophobia, and fear-mongering, but he did not say that specifically about the travel ban. Mr. Biden's aides later said he supported travel bans based on science, and Mr. Trump did not announce the partial travel ban very early relative to other nations. In fact, the United States was in the 3rd wave of nations that enacted some form of travel ban on China in January. Biden has promised to abolish the production of American oil, coal, shale, and natural gas. Mr. Biden has made no such promise, nor do his policy proposals ban production of those energy sources. This is false. However, Mr. Biden's climate change plan would end new leases for hydraulic fracturing or fracking for oil and gas on federal lands, but they would not ban existing fracking on public lands. Frankly, in my opinion, he should do more to reduce it, but he isn't. So if you love this notion of American fossil fuel production, Biden's not really doing as much as he could to curtail it. He's just saying no new leases for fracking. We have built 300 miles of border wall, and we are adding 10 new miles every single week. The wall will soon be complete, and it is working beyond our wildest expectations. So what's the facts? The facts are that the Trump administration has built 300 miles of new wall. All of it is in areas where dilapidated barriers existed or vehicle barriers once stood. They are on track to barely meet Trump's mandate of 450 miles by the end of the year. Much of it will not be in the Rio Grande Valley, an area historically prone to illegal crossings, where private landowners have fought in court against the project. The border wall is also not working as Mr. Trump promised. Migrants have used power tools to cut through and ladders to climb over it. I could also argue, and I don't know if the numbers bear this out, but it may be working beyond our wildest expectations because people are not eager to come into the United States right now, given that we have a global pandemic going on. All right, let's see. Over the past 3 months, hold on. The kids are freaking making a lot of noise. Whatever, it's Friday. I'm sorry. If you guys hear background screaming from the kids, they're going to do what they're going to do. Over the past 3 months, we have gained over 9 million jobs, and that's a record in the history of our country. Well, that sounds really impressive. Like, wow, Donald Trump, the job creator. So what's the facts? The facts are, it is true that the United States economy did gain more than 9 million jobs between April and June, but it has lost more than 20 million between February and April. The bounce back was rapid in part because many people had only been temporarily laid off as states shut down to control the spread, and they were quickly rehired. So they're not new jobs, they're temporarily laid off people. And the 9 million is still 11 million short of it coming back to where we were in February. So we lost 20 million, gained 9. That is still a net loss. But if you read the speech sounds awesome. Over the past 3 months, we have gained 9 million jobs. It almost sounds like we have 9 million that we didn't have before. But it's actually 9 million people that were temporarily laid off who were brought back. There's not any actual creation of jobs. So that's that story. Let's see. Oh, well, let's give him credit. He said that Biden opposed killing Soleimani, and that is true. And that Biden basically doubted, he thought it could lead to a military escalation. Okay, next. That's the NAFTA stuff. Oh, this one's interesting. We also passed, Ryan, leave the room, please. I'm in the middle of a live stream.
I thought you said it was 5.
Yeah, I'm not done yet, bro.
Oh, just saying Ryan's pistol can shoot 5 bullets.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to wrap up soon. I got to do a Nerf gun battle with my sons in a minute. Okay. We also passed the VA accountability, VA choice. We heard a lot about VA choice at the RNC. We are taking care of our veterans. 91% approval rating this month. The VA has been given by veterans. First time anything like that has happened. Well, that sounds pretty impressive. The Veterans Choice Program was created, when? In 2014, under that president with the funny name. However, in 2018, Trump signed a law that overhauled and consolidated choice into a single program. It is unclear what poll Mr. Trump is referring to, but 57% of veterans approved of Mr. Trump's handling of his duties, and 92% of Republican veterans approved. Oh, 92% of Republican veterans approve of Trump. And that has been twisted into, look how they're clever, how they do the punctuation. So he says, we passed the VA choice. We're taking great care of our veterans. And then they have a period. And then they say 91% approval rating this month. The VA given by our veterans, which is technically true. It's technically true. 92% of Republican veterans do approve. But it does sound like 91% of all veterans approve. So anyway, but that's Trump for you. Oh, Jesus. All right. We'll do this one. Days after taking office, we ended the Paris Climate Accord, secured for the first time American energy independence. So he did withdraw from Paris in 2019. It is not accurate to say that the United States is energy independent. In 2019, nearly half the oil consumed by the United States was imported. Okay, so that's just not true. Let's see. I think, see, do one or two more. I say very modestly that I have done more for the African American community than any president since Abraham Lincoln, our first Republican. False. Historians agree that the most significant legislative achievements belong to Johnson, who shepherded the passage of the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, and the Fair Housing Act. A 2017 that assessed modern presidents based on the analysis published in Black newspapers ranked Mr. Johnson at the top, and Mr. Trump would be in the bottom third. Okay, so if you are an African American and you saw the president make the statement that he has done more for the African American community than any president since Lincoln, that's kind of BS. Unless you feel that Trump has done more than the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, and Fair Housing Act, which seem pretty kind of like big deals. I'm not sure what Trump would say he has done. Maybe more fracking. Okay. Let's see if there's any more fact checking, and then I got to do the Nerf war. Oh, we got to talk about this one. Our NATO partners were far behind in their payments, but at my strong urging, they agreed to pay $130 billion more a year, the first time in over 20 years. They upped their payments, and this $130 billion will ultimately go to $400 billion. Applause, applause, applause. Okay, so here's the deal. For all you guys who've heard Trump talk about NATO, NATO does not send a bill to Germany, France, Italy. There is no NATO receipt, no invoice that you get. All NATO does is tell each country they should try and spend 2% of their GDP on their own defense. And many of them choose not to. And so this notion of, oh, the U.S. isn't getting paid, we would never get paid. It's the French spending on their own military, the Germans spending on their own military, the Italians on their own military, the Spanish on their own military. So are we supposed to fault these Europeans for deciding not to spend trillions of dollars on military spending? I don't know. Like, they should spend whatever they want. And you know what? We as Americans, we don't have to spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars on military if we don't want to. That's our choice. We can spend as much as we want, and other countries can spend as much as they want. But just as a reminder, every year, your tax dollars basically go to, let's see. Wow. Is that true? No. Do we spend that much? Yeah. Wow. So it turns out that we as a country spend $732 billion a year on defense. Now, I don't know. Can you blame Germany and France saying, like, look, bro, I don't want to spend $732 billion? I don't know. But at any rate, anytime you hear Trump talking about NATO payments, those are not payments to America. Those are just spending by the Germans on their own freaking military. All right. Freaking Trump. All right, let's see. What is that? No. I think we might be good. Oh, yeah. You've probably heard about Trump apparently reducing the cost of prescription drugs. Like, hey, the pharma CEOs, they really didn't like me. I fought for you. So what's the fact? He did sign 4 executive orders related to drug prices last month, but none of these policies would have any major impact on drug prices for most people who take prescription drugs. All of them will require additional regulatory or state actions, which could take months or years before they will have any effect at all. Even more, the content of one of the orders signed during the ceremony has been not made public, has been concealed. We don't even know what the hell he signed. So if he tells you like he's lowered your drug prices, no. He signed a bunch of things that are not going to affect drug prices, and one of them he won't even tell you what's inside of it. All right. I think the kids are going crazy, so I'm gonna have to stop. I'm gonna have to stop there. It's been an hour and 20 minutes. Hey, listen, if you like this content and if you found the fact checking or the Senate intelligence report useful, can you do me a solid? Can you do a nerd a favor? Can you like this and share it? And if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at Nerds for Yang. Oh, Elizabeth Norris gave me a super chat. Woohoo! I don't have my big Swiss bell. This is a little Swiss bell. But thank you, Elizabeth Norris. Really appreciate it. This will go towards all of the money I get, by the way, from super chats and members. None of it goes into my pocket. It all goes back into the channel, either for equipment, software, or recently, if you listen to Yang Speaks, we ran our first Nerds for Humanity ad on the Yang Speaks podcast. Why are we doing that? So that we can get a bigger audience and then I can land bigger guests. Some of the people that will be, let me just give you a little quick heads up on some upcoming shows, because tomorrow I have a live stream. I think I have, no, this weekend I have a couple. So let me just give you a little preview before I go, because the kids are quiet now, which generally is a bad thing because I don't know what the hell they're doing, but at least they're being quiet. Okay, so upcoming live streams. Here we go. We have, Yang Gang for Congress retrospective on Sunday. So on that one, we're going to have Herzog. We're going to have Heidi. We're going to have Lucci and Sammy, a bunch of Yang Gang for Congress. Oh, and Mike Breuer to kind of share like what they learned from running, what they would do differently. So that's going to be like a retrospective. So that should be super interesting. And then we have a Libertarian UBI supporter on September 5th. We have a member panel discussion. So if you are a member, I already posted a members only comment with a link to join. If you're not a member and you want to become a member, join. So those are some of the shows coming up. And I actually can give you even a better heads up. Tomorrow, one of my MAGA friends, not Peter, my brother. I know he's popular, but I have many MAGA friends. So one of my MAGA friends who I went to high school with is going to be coming on the show. We'll have I'm sure, a lively discussion. And then after that, we have the retrospective with the Yang Gang for Congress candidates. Then the following week, we have J.D. Schulten. Ooh, and then after that, we have Marin, who was in the news for getting fired by Amazon for advocating for worker rights. So we'll talk to her. She's also a volunteer on the Of the People project. And then we got Erica Rhodes on September 13th. Let's see. Scott Santons is coming on September 20th. Matt from Zach and Matt on the 27th. Nell Nieves, one of our members and a big Yang Gang volunteer, on October 4th. So those are just some. The Reverend Wendy will be October 18th. Basically, every Sunday, I got some good guests, and I'm excited about that. So hopefully you guys will be joining us. And thanks again for everybody that super chatted, or if you're a member, helps make more nerd content. I know this is super detailed. This is not like for everybody, but because you guys support the channel, we can keep making this content and having great conversations with people. So you guys, we'll see you next time. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye, nerds. Bye, nerds. Bye.